When I think of unique anime, there's always one that comes to mind, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm positive that most people have heard of JoJo's, since it was first released in 1986 and is still ongoing to this day. Whether you love it or hate it, it's a staple within anime that inspired many others to do works of their own. And is a series you won't forget while watching. I find that special. Yet a majority know it from the memes and references, but JoJo's is more than that, even if the memes can be great. It does many things that differ from the average animes you see. Even just looking at it, you can see how different it looks, mainly from the characters. They burst with creativity. I can understand why many people may not like this kind of style. It's very different from what you normally see, and it may put people off a bit. However, I love it. It's so stylish and complex. The detail on all the characters' faces, with all these extra lines, put more depth into it. I don't even know what some of these lines are meant to signify, and I'm fond of it, by making the characters look wildly different from everything else. You see a normal 17-year-old high schooler, you know, nothing out the ordinary for anime, and then you get JoJo's, where a great deal of characters look much older than they actually are, where a guy with yellow hair wearing a purple suit looks like they're in their mid-20s at least, but is actually 15, or another one of a woman that sometimes looks like they're in their 30s is 14. I don't know what point I'm trying to make, all I know is that I'm addicted to how this art style looks, where I can't stop drawing the characters now and again. Seeing how small details come together to make something really appealing is incredible. Also with the mangas, from what I've read at least, the panels have so much personality to them, where I could look at the drawings for much longer than I should, for how much passion and effort went into them, knowing it probably took days to draw a single page. And there's even more to add with how this show looks with the openings. A good chunk of them use CGI. Now normally for me with anime, CGI can look very strange to me. It's not as smooth as 2D, and many times it can look out of place, especially if they combined both 2D and 3D at once. Whereas the JoJo openings, I prefer them to be 3D. There is so much to see. Instead of making them look generic, it has a certain quality to them, where it also mixes in 2D with the CGI and fits well with the show. It's fast paced with so much going on every second, but not to the point where it overwhelms you. And is extremely colourful, it's really pleasant. There are also a few fully 2D ones, and they are great as well, but I don't know, the CGI just adds that little bit extra. The songs to the openings are also good, being some of my favourites I've listened to, especially Bloody Stream. But what makes JoJo's special? Well, the JoJo's of course. Throughout the series there is a different protagonist in each season. Jonathan Joestar, the gentleman with no table manners. Joseph Joestar, the absolute intelligent goofball. Jotaro Kujo, a very normal looking teenager. Josuke Higashikata, a pretty well-mannered guy unless you talk bad about his hair. Giorno Giovanna, which is still technically a JoJo. Jolene Kujo, the only female one. Also including the others from the manga, you get a total of 8 protagonists, each one being unalike from the other. And not only them, but most of the cast change in each season as well. This may seem that you need to keep track of a lot of characters throughout the story, and it seems like it could be confusing. However, it's not, because every season has its own story, so it always feels refreshing each time. Sure, the stories can be slightly connected to one another, but you could probably jump from part 3 to part 6, and you would still understand most of what's happening. Each part is a totally new experience. It can sometimes feel like you're watching a completely different anime. Part 1, Phantom Blood, starts off with a somewhat basic vampire story. Part 2, Battle Tendency, JoJo fights 3 ancient units. Part 3, Stardust Crusaders, is a road trip to kill a vampire. Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable, is based in a quiet town with a lot of mystery to it. Part 5, Golden Wind, is about the Italian mafia. Part 6, Stone Ocean, is set in a high security prison. Part 7, Steel Bull Run, is a race to New York to win $50 million. And Part 8, JoJolion. To be honest, I've not gotten that far yet, so I have no idea what JoJolion is about, but I'm sure it's just as unique as the rest. Nevertheless, this is what makes JoJo so exceptional. It takes so many ideas and puts it all into one. It is quite a long anime, having 190 episodes in total, and that's not even to account for the manga or even the spin-off series. There is a lot of JoJo's content to take in, yet it never seems to get tiring. It's structured in a way for it not to be repetitive. There are constantly separate elements as it goes on to keep you entertained. and I have no idea when the series is going to end, since it has recently announced even more content for a 9th part, JoJo Lands, and I'm there for the ride. JoJo's is such a joy to watch, and one of the more amusing aspects is how bizarre it is, as I'm sure it's expected from an anime with bizarre in the title. And the key focus on what makes the show bizarre are the abilities the characters have, which are called stands. Stands are basically a manifestation of the user's soul, and for each user they do a variety of skills, such as stopping time, turning objects into bombs, or reading a person's personal life by transforming them into a book. But then you get more obscure ones, such as one stand just being a transmission tower or a power socket. Also the other stand, which localization name is Filthy X at a reasonable price, they're all kinda funny. I adore stands, they're all dependent from one another, and they make many of the fights thrilling. Not all of them can be great, and some of them are quite complicated to understand the abilities to. Nonetheless, they definitely make what JoJo's is bizarre. Stands aren't the only thing that make the anime bizarre, you have other stuff, like Joseph, or a dog that magically changes its appearance halfway through, this out of nowhere dance to torture someone, a guy which covers his clothes in soap so he can fight with bubbles, or Joseph. I love Joseph. I've shown so much praise for JoJo's, yet the show's not perfect. I felt like a few of the parts weren't consistent with each other, some were kinda meh to okay to great. Also, some of the fights were uninteresting, there were too many at some points, which made stuff longer than it needed to be. Especially part 3, with 48 episodes, which is longer than the rest of the others, yet has the most basic plot out of all of them. There are also many things that either needed more explanation or don't really make much sense in general. Still, I could easily ignore its weaknesses and flaws, because when it gets good, it gets really good. There were many times where I was on the edge of my seat, getting engrossed in what I was looking at. So the entirety of JoJo's is not perfect, but it's such an engaging take on anime. The art style, the characters, and how the episodes play out are all distinctive. You will probably not find another anime that is as special as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.